Welcome back, everyone. This is Mike. I'd like to do another Blu-ray and DVD update. Recently, there was a sale from Kino-lorber, which is one of the best companies you can buy remastered films from. They do a lot of good work. To me, they are second only to the Criterion collection as far as their quality. Now, they don't do a lot of creative packaging. The packaging is actually very simple, and they don't always put a lot of extra features on their films, but what they do is they remaster beautifully a lot of film noir, a lot of sort of some slightly obscure movies that a lot of people aren't paying any attention to, plus a lot of horror films as well. So I got a mixture of DVDs and Blu-rays, and let me show you what I got. First of all, an Alfred Hitchcock film that I've never seen, The Paradigm Case. Gregory Peck, Ann Todd, Charles Laughton, Charles Coburn, Ethel Barrymore, Alida Valli. So I'll be interested in seeing that. Hitchcock is always good to watch. And here is a B horror film that I had never seen before. I'd always heard about it, and I'd read little things about it in film books. This absolutely blindsided me. It was just really beautiful to look at. The Undying Monster from the year 1942, low-budget film from Columbia Pictures, directed by a guy named John Bram, or maybe you pronounce it Brahm, B-R-A-H-M, who I didn't really know anything about. That wasn't a name that rang a bell with me. But he also directed two classic films after he directed this, The Lodger and then Hangover Square, both films starring Laird Krieger and George Sanders, both terrific suspense horror films. And I had no idea who John Bram was until I saw the documentary on this disc. This is really terrific. It's a grade B horror film with low budget, but it's a film that's made with A picture quality, and it's just beautiful to look at. The story itself isn't so profound. It's just kind of it takes place in England, a very rustic atmosphere with a big old dark house on a cliff, and it has to do with a family curse that has to do with a werewolf. And there's some comedy bits in it as well, just like a lot of horror films in that period had comedy, sometimes more comedy than they should have had. But it's beautiful to look at. Highly recommended. I was very happy to discover another horror film that I didn't really know much about. Speaking of horror films, this is a movie from 1957 called Curse of the Faceless Man, which I saw way back in the 60s, I think maybe once, and have not seen it since. So it'll be nice to see it in Blu-ray glory. All right. Next is a film from 1965 called The Satan Bug, starring George Maharis, Richard Basehart, Anne Francis, Dana Andrews. This is a film directed by John Sturges, a very good director who also directed The Great Escape and Bad Day of Black Rock. This is a suspense film about a virus that is contained in some capsules that somebody is using for terrorism, right? So George Maharis is the ex-government man who was brought back into service to try to stop the world from being destroyed. It's a very good movie. I was surprised. I'd never seen this before either. Here's a great film from 1959 called On the Beach, produced and directed by Stanley Kramer. Great cast of actors. Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, Fred Astaire, Anthony Perkins. And I remember seeing this when I was a kid with my family. We saw this at the drive-in and have not seen it since, but I always remembered it. There were certain scenes in this that I remembered almost completely. I was surprised. Very effective film, kind of a science fiction theme, but not really. This is made in 1959. It takes place in the apocalyptic year 1964, where there has been a nuclear war that has decimated half the world, and the radiation is spreading throughout the rest of the world, killing people. This takes place in Australia, and the giant cloud that contains the radiation is headed toward Australia. The United States, Europe, they have all been completely, everybody's been killed. And these people are waiting to die. So it's a very human story about a very science fiction-ish theme. It's really wonderful. Highly recommended. On the Beach. Here's a low-budget film that I never heard of until recently. The Ghost of Sierra de Cobre, starring Martin Landau, Judith Anderson, Diane Baker, and also Diane McBain is in it as well, in a very small part. Produced and directed by Joseph Stefano, who is the guy behind the TV series The Outer Limits. and he puts a lot of atmosphere to this black and white film that kind of reminds me of something you might see in Outer Limits, including the monster or the ghost. Anyway, it's a ghost story that was actually supposed to be a TV pilot. It was a TV pilot that did not sell. So it was originally called, let's see, the pilot itself was called, oh boy, The Haunted. And that didn't make it. So they went back and they added some scenes, they made it longer and made it into a film. And I had never heard of it until fairly recently. I think it was a lost film or something, but very interesting to look at. Very beautiful black and white cinematography. Here is a film called The Thomas Crown Affair, Steve McQueen, Faye Dunaway, directed by Norman Jewison. I've never seen this, and I picked it up out of curiosity. I like Steve McQueen quite a bit, and one of my YouTube and Facebook friends, I think it was Jay Harvey, was talking about this. It may have been somebody else, but I'm pretty sure it was Jay that he was recommending this film. So maybe it was Harry Benson. I don't know. Anyway, looking forward to seeing that. All right. Here's a Dustin Hoffman film from 1971 called Who is Harry Kellerman and Why is He Saying Those Terrible Things About Me? Which is a really dumb title for a very interesting little early 70s film. Very much like a lot of films of that era that are kind of critical about the world. And Dustin Hoffman plays a music composer and producer who's very famous and makes a lot of money. And he's having a midlife crisis. And he talks a lot about, as the film progresses, he talks a lot about mistakes he's made in the past with women and that sort of thing. And he ends up meeting a very depressed, aging actress played by Barbara Harris, who was nominated for Best Supporting Actress in this, and she should have been. She was wonderful. Very good actress. Okay, I enjoyed this one very much. I'd never seen that before either. Here's another film I've never seen before, and I watched it last night. Richard Burton in Absolution, where he plays a priest. He's the head of a Catholic boys' school in England, and he's very rigid in his religion and as a teacher, and he sort of focuses on one young boy, not in a romantic or sexual way, but a young boy who is very promising, and he thinks that this boy might end up being a priest. So he kind of takes him under his wing, not knowing that the boy is just totally corrupt in a way that you would not even begin to imagine. But it has to do with the fact that the priest, of course, teaches these boys in a religion class that whatever is said in a confession, the priest can never repeat unless he's given permission by the penitent. And it sort of snaps back at him because this boy starts playing an incredible game with him. It's really creepy. I was surprised. All right. So some more things I got. Now, these are just for fun. I got some of the road pictures featuring Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, and Dorothy Lamour that were made at Paramount Pictures back in the 1940s and up into the early 1950s. I already have two of them. There was a whole bunch of them made. I've got Road to Singapore, which was the first one they made back in 1940, and Road to Zanzibar, Road to Morocco, okay, and two of them on DVD. Well, one, actually, Road to Rio, and the others are Road to Bali and Road to Utopia, which I already have. And there's another one called Road to Hong Kong, which was made in 1962. And I don't even know if that's available, but it's not a bad movie either. Wouldn't mind having it. This is another one very similar to the road pictures. Bob Hope and Dorothy Lamour, my favorite brunette, which I remember seeing way back when I was a kid. I saw all these movies back when I was a kid, and they are great fun. So, and some more DVDs that I got from Kino-lorber. Another Alfred Hitchcock film that I've never seen, Under Capricorn, with Ingrid Bergman, Joseph Cotten, and Michael Wilding. Anybody seen that? I've never heard anybody talk about that before. Okay. Here's a film from 1961 starring Audrey Hepburn, Shirley MacLaine, and James Garner, The Children's Hour, directed by, let's see, William Wyler. William Wyler, right. Now, this, of course, started out as a play way back in the late 1920s, and it's about two women running a girls' school who are accused by one of the students of having a lesbian relationship, and it ruins their lives, and it gets very, very dramatic and very sad. And this was adapted into a film in 1936 called These Three, which starred Miriam Hopkins, Merle Oberon, and I think Joel McCrea was the guy. They of course they couldn't make a film with a lesbian theme, so they changed it into an illicit relationship where one woman was engaged to a man and her friend started sleeping with him. That's what they were accused of. But anyway, this is a very, very dramatic and very good film, but it's really downbeat, very, very sad. But I would highly recommend this. Great drama. And they were very true to the theme in 1961. William Wyler directed this, and he directed the one in 1936. Miriam Hopkins, who played one of the young women, is also in this film as the aunt of one of the women. And Faye Bainter, the classic character actress from the 1930s, is also in this as well. Plus a very young Veronica Cartwright. For those of you who are fans of her in Alien and some of her other films, she was one of the best child actresses of the period. So, all right. Also, a couple of films starring Carole Lombard. One is Nothing Sacred, and the other is Made for Each Other. I remember seeing these years ago in some very bad VHS versions, so it'll be nice to see them in remastered glory. Now, this is an English film, an English film noir that I didn't know anything about. It's called No Orchids for Miss Blandish. Now, the reason why I bought this, I was reading about it. And the man who stars in the film is an American actor named Jack LaRue. That name might not mean anything to most of you, but he is a very good character actor, plays a lot of gangsters and very complicated characters in films, in American films, and he's a lot like Humphrey Bogart. So I've been seeing him a lot recently in some of the low-budget Poverty Row movies that I've been buying, and I thought, God, Jack LaRue in a starring role in a film noir, I'm not going to pass that up. So. Very happy to have it. Okay, so here are a couple of films. That's all for the kino-lorber collection. Here are a couple of films I picked up recently from the Criterion collection. One is A Face in the Crowd, directed by Elia Kazan in 1957, starring Andy Griffith, Patricia Neal, and Walter Matthau. Also, Lee Remick is in it. Very, very good film that I highly recommend. I had never seen this before. This is not Andy Griffith playing Andy Taylor, although the accent is still there, but he plays a very, very hard-hitting, dramatic part as a guy who's basically found in the gutter, and he becomes a star on television. And you have to see it to believe it. It's very, very good, very well done. All right. And here's another low-budget, obscure film from 1970 called Wanda, starring this woman here, Barbara Loden, who was a sometime actress, sometime writer and director. She starred in, also wrote and directed this film, which won some awards, actually. And it's a very downbeat story about a woman who just is determined to destroy her life, and she does it very, very well. And that's probably not doing it justice, but it was fascinating to watch. Barbara Loden was a very interesting person who also was married for many years to Elia Kazan, and unfortunately she died very young of cancer. But yeah, very much worth seeing. All right. Now, finally, I went to Big Lots, and if any of you who are close to a Big Lots, you might want to go there because Miss Marilyn Monroe is now appearing at Big Lots, and she's on sale for $5. $5 Blu-ray, some of her best films. Niagara, great film noir. Bus Stop, 1956. This is probably the best film she ever did, really. The best performance she ever gave in her life. There's No Business Like Show Business. Well, that's a glare, isn't it? From 1954, it's got people like Ethel Merman, Dan Daly, Donald O'Connor, Mitzi Gaynor, and Johnny Ray, and Marilyn Monroe is singing and dancing with all of them. In this one, she does her big hit, After You Get What You Want, You Don't Want What You Wanted at All. And I'm not going to try to repeat that, but you have to see it to believe it. Very good musical. Lots and lots of music in it. How to Marry a Millionaire from 1953, Betty Grable, Lauren Bacall, and River of No Return, starring Robert Mitchum with Marilyn Monroe. I love this one a lot. Directed by Otto Preminger. And finally, we have Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, co-starring Jane Russell. So, yeah, and they also had a copy of The Misfits, which for some reason, I thought I already had it on Blu-ray, but I don't. So I may go back and double dip and get that one too, because I've already got that on. I've got most of these on DVD already. I said I was never going to double dip, and I'm doing it. Okay. And anyway, that's 15 minutes of update. That's enough. Let me know what you think of any of these films. Have you seen them? What I can expect when I watch them? Comments are welcome.